This time on Rad Rat Video, we're talking about what power you could have in a video game would be the best in real life. Let's do it. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, where some of the time I talk about skateboarding and some of the time I judge you if you mongo. And today we're answering some of your questions that you submitted through radratvideo.com. The first question for today is from Jay, who says, do you think a video game where you play as a skate filmer could be interesting? What do you think could be included in a game like that? You know, I think about this a lot because not making a game out of it, but like how hard it is to actually film, because if they do a really good job, you can't tell how hard it is. I recently saw a clip. It was a guy skating down this hill, and it was like super wet, you know, pouring rain, and the guy is skating down the hill, and he like slides to a stop, or he like falls over at the end. But then the camera guy turns the camera to himself and waves. And I noticed, like, in that case, the filmer was doing something harder. He bombed the hill right next to him, but he was also filming. And like, sure, he could have just like pointed the camera as he was keeping his eye ahead, but I doubt it, because it was very well framed. The guy never left the camera, you know, like the angle or anything like that. So he was probably like watching his camera, at least partially, you know, doing this type of thing, while the other guy is just skating. So the filmer actually did the harder thing in that case, but he doesn't get any credit. And like, there's a lot of other things you have to think about with skateboarding, like, or trying to film skateboarding. Like if you hit a rock, the other guy is doing his line, he landed the first trick perfectly, you go after him and you hit a rock. Like, that would really suck. Or you've got like a tight turn and you don't, you know, you're trying to pay attention to what's going on your camera, and you turn too sharp and you know, something happens. A lot of that stuff can be really tough. Or getting up a curb. You know, you can't ollie up a curb because the skater you're filming does, because you'd have to look down and get ready, and like the camera's off doing this thing and not paying attention, and you ollie, and then the clip is all messed up. So you have to figure out how to like step off the board and run and like pick your board up and then get back on it while being as smooth as possible. That stuff is very difficult. Could it make a fun game though? I'm not sure. It would have to be like live, because, you know, in skate or session or anything like that, you can produce clips, but you don't have to like film them. You put the camera here, you go to the end, you set a keyframe where the camera's here, somewhere in the middle, you kind of make it angle up and down, and then, you know, you can tweak it. You can spend your time changing the angle and the filters and all that type of stuff until it looks perfect. And while that's how it should be in those games, because it doesn't matter how hard it was to film it, it just matters how good the clip is. To make a game out of it, it would have to be live. It would have to be like the skater does the trick over and over and over, and you have to like do it all. But like in actual life, the skater doesn't land the trick every time. He bails 100 times and finally gets it once at the end. And like, if you didn't film it right, you're screwed. You might have to do it again, and you might not be able to do it again. But it would suck in a game if you had to wait for the skater to do it 100 times before you could finally get the clip. Like that just wouldn't be fun. So the skater would have to do the trick over and over and over perfectly, or at least half the time or something like that. And you would have to be able to film it. It seems like it would be tough to make that fun because art you can't be judged on art in a game, because it's judged by a computer. You would get points based on, you know, whatever they figure out, but that doesn't mean that the angle you picked is good. It would just meet some criteria in a computer. So that would be tough. I do think it might be possible as a little side thing, like in Skate 4. I remember in Skate 3, there were times where you could like drop a camera, and then you would do a trick, and then you'd have to pick the right shot afterward. But it was a very small thing. They could expand on that, make it a little bit more interesting, and make you have to film your teammates or something like that. But I don't know. I think it'd be tough to make that fun. Okay, next question is from Rob Sharp, who says, so after skating a bowl with some tight 90-degree corners, my legs feeling pretty knackered the next day, I was wondering what sort of G-forces skaters experience in a session. Okay, so he's talking about a 12-foot drop vert in his local skate park. So what do you think the G-force on my legs is? What do you think the maximum a skater can hit before a heavy slam? So I have two videos that you might like that get into a lot of detail about this, although I will talk about that 12-foot drop in a second. I have the bone-breaking drops. That's more about how much impact your legs can take so that they will break. Like, it doesn't matter how perfect of a skater you are. You can't do gaps bigger than this because your legs will break. And then I have like the biggest drop in that you could do, where you like drop in off of a skyscraper and like all the forces that you would feel throughout that. So check those out. A little pop-up just came up and another one will come up in a second about those. But I will answer your specific question directly, which is cool because I haven't done this kind of math in a while. So 12-foot tall vert with an 8-foot transition. So that is the theoretical ramp I'm picturing here. Your drop-in speed would be about 18.9 miles per hour, which is about 30.5 kilometers per hour. So the way that you can calculate that is actually pretty cool because it's the same speed that you would hit the ground at if you just drop 12 feet and hit the ground, but the transition just converts your speed to flat, but you're still dropping the same distance. So you still get the same amount of force from the drop. So like you're going the same speed. And this is only if you drop in totally neutral. You can pump and you can anti-pump, which if you haven't done that before, you can drop in kind of like straight. And then as you start to land or you start to drop in, you can like absorb the impact. And it feels more like you just hit the flat bottom and you don't get as much speed. So like assuming you're not doing that and you're not pumping, you just drop in, you would get that much speed, which was 18.9 miles per hour. So if you were to go 19 miles per hour almost in an 8-foot transition, an 8-foot circle, you would be facing just under 3 Gs. So that's only at the very bottom, because right when you start to hit the transition, you're not going as fast. You're at your full speed right at the bottom. So the transition you're feeling right when you flatten out would be about 3 Gs. But what does 3 Gs feel like? If you were to go on a like really tall coaster and you were like reach the peak, you come all the way down, get all the speed, then it pulls up, you can reach about 4.5. So you're facing a bit less than that. I've got some more notes. If you were to sustain 3.5 for some time, like if you were pulling up in an airplane or something like that, you would start to black out. Like you would start to like blink out with your eyes slightly and you wouldn't be able to see if you had sustained 3.5. But this is 3 for a moment. And if you were to take off in the space shuttle, you would also face 3. Although it's a bit different because they are facing this way, like they're in seats, but they're facing upwards. So the force feels like it's backwards. And that's a lot harder for your body to tolerate. Going downwards is a lot less of a problem for your body. So a 3 dropping in on a ramp is a lot easier than 3 in a space shuttle or like an airplane taking off. So it is quite a bit, but it's not like a dangerously unsafe amount. You're not going to black out or anything like that. The next question is from your mom, who says, in one of your skate review videos, you mentioned that an easy way to beat the high score competitions was just to simply bust out a 360 nollie, 360 hard flip into a grind. I've been thinking about this, and in real life, there's absolutely nothing easy about that trick. I almost credit carded just typing out the name of the trick. So my question is this trick even physically possible? Has it ever been done? Has anyone ever tried it? If not, who do you think would most likely be able to pull it off one day? Okay. Is it physically possible? Sure. But there's a lot of things that are beyond the skill of humans that could physically be done, you know? So like, is it possible to do a 720 gazelle flip? Yes. And I've seen it nollie and heel flip. I haven't seen it nollie and kick flip though before, which is what we're talking about here. So a nollie 720 gazelle kick flip backside would be insane. It's possible. Doing it into a grind though, which you can do in the skate series, and that's specifically what I was talking about for the high scores, I don't think you could do that. Like spinning 360 and landing in a grind and holding the grind for a little bit would be really, really tough because you had to wind way up and you threw the board and you landed in like a 5-0. Your shoulders are going to keep going. That would be really tough. If you locked into something just right, maybe. but that would be next to impossible. But the person I think would be closest to be able to do that would be Jason Park, although he'd probably do it off the tail instead of nollie. But he does lots of 360 hard flips and like, you know, on hips and in different ways and different, like he's probably the best at those that I am aware of. Haven't seen him do one nollie, haven't seen him do it 720 gazelle, haven't seen him do that into a grind. I don't think we'll ever see that, but maybe just the flip trick, not the grind though. All right. Okay, the next question is from AVG from Patreon. It says, often skating at video games, we see exaggerated powers and physics for the sake of fun. If you had one power from a video game, such as perfect balance, the ability to bail without consequences, super ollie height, etc., what would it be and why? Man, that the bailing without consequences thing, that's a good one. Because like in the Tony Hawk games, you can ollie off a building, hit the ground and bail, and you like some blood splatters, and then you just get up and you're 100% fine. Your skater doesn't limp for the rest of the run. You don't go slower because your foot hurts every time you push. There's zero consequences to that. And so yeah, if you could skate with zero consequences, never get hurt, that would be pretty amazing. I think that's a very good one, but it's not a very fun answer. So I would not take that one. I would take focus mode. So in the Tony Hawk games, if you click in the stick as you're skating, it kind of zooms in and slows down, and you can see the trick come around and get ready to catch it. And you know, in that game, what you're doing is squeezing the most flip tricks in the air before you land, because that's all that really helps. And you can control the balance a little bit easier when it's in slow motion too. But in real life, I think it would help doing really technical stuff. For example, last year I tried to do a kick flip underflip, and it didn't really go that well. It was my last Tricks and Tribulations video, I think, and it may be my last ever because I'm still recovering from a knee injury that was a long time ago. But the way that the trick is supposed to be done is you pop the board, you flick your front foot down, which feels weird, and then you pull it back up, and it's all in the front foot. I couldn't do that. I couldn't make it work. I couldn't make it make sense. It just didn't feel right. So the way I was trying to do it was flick with my front foot and then pull my back foot around and flip it that way, which kind of worked. And I got it, and I was starting to do it fairly consistently. I think I landed a few of them until I watched the footage back, and I was doing just over a half flip, maybe like somewhere around here, and then I would hit it with my toe and flip it back. And I didn't realize that it was not flipping all the way around. It felt like it was. If I had focus mode though, I could see the board. I could wait. I could hold on a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. Not quite. Okay, there. And then I could flip it back. And that would make that type of thing so much easier. Because like that trick, the board flips twice. So if you do anything that can flip twice, you know how quickly that is. And to be able to stop it halfway through and go back, like that's instant. There's like no time to think. In slow motion though, that would be pretty great. You could do all kinds of like late stuff and all that because you can just watch it come around and your timing would be perfect. So that would be super cool. The other thing I could think of that would work with that is doing gaps. Like with a huge drop, not so much, but anything where you're covering ground, because it wouldn't feel like you're going that fast. You know, like you can push twice in ollie. Well, in slow motion, the feel like you push twice would be like 5 really hard pushes, like you're ready to ollie over a huge grass gap. It would feel like it's no big deal, and you just kind of are in the air for more time, and you're watching the grass kind of go by. You have plenty of time to see if you've got the speed to clear it or not, and take a look at it and make sure everything looks good, and then just put it down nice and carefully. That would be a lot of fun. So yeah, that is the power that I would like. I think I would get a lot of use out of that. But if you have a different one in mind, put that one in the comments. And that's it for now. If you like the channel, you can support it in a few ways. You can submit your questions by going to radratvideo.com. There's a form there on the homepage. There are some shirts on that site and some patches and things like that for sale. There's also another store with different shirt designs. It has to be separate. It's a whole thing. There's Patreon. You can join on YouTube to support that way too, and they all have their different perks and things like that. But that's all for now. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you next week.